Okay, so these are some contemplations based on the shlokas we have looked at, where it was moderation. The previous shlokas were mostly pointing towards moderation in sleep, in activities, in our eating, food habits, and all that. And this is the famous shloka, Yuktahara Viharasya, Yukta Chestasya, Karmasu, Yukta Swapnava Bodhasya, Yogo Bhavati Dukkha. So these things are, we can ask ourselves, what constitutes a balanced diet for me? Do I sometimes binge on food and then compensate with excessive eating, fasting? Activities, am I balanced in terms of physical activity? Do I oscillate between being lazy and procrastinating and then becoming too restless and overactive? And sleep, how consistent are my sleep patterns? Do I sometimes oversleep and at other times get insufficient rest? So this is a personal thing for our life also, and mostly for the sadhana. From the perspective of sadhana, it is mentioned here because the discernment we need in our daily life affects how our sadhana, our yoga, our practices. So uh, directly there is an effect on how we live our life, how much we eat, how much we sleep, how much we engage in activities, because all that will directly affect our mind. And when the mind gets too much caught up with all these things, whether enjoying too much or getting too excited and restless, it is not stable enough for inquiry. It is not stable enough for meditation, japa, or any practices. No? So when the our knowledge comes, when the understanding starts coming, they should align with our actions, no? Our sleep, our food, and our interactions with people. So that is where we are able to, as they say, walk the talk. Otherwise, we study all this and then we don't do manana, we don't apply it, we don't think it in our life, then it will not be a useful knowledge for us. It will become more like just like a philosophical study. And that is not the purpose of these texts. These texts are meant to transform us and give us that ultimate happiness, lead us to that ultimate happiness. So it is not also just dieting for the sake of a little healthy body for a few years, or working for the sake of having a little money. Here, our activities, our sleep, everything are means of achieving that highest reality. So there is a famous quote by an Indian poet, Kalidasa. He says that Sharira Madhyam Kalu Dharma Sadhanam, he says. So, of course, from his perspective, Dharma, the realization of Dharma, is the goal. So he says that the body is a means. Body is a means for attaining that realization of truth, or the Dharma, that righteousness. To walk the path of Dharma, you need that. You need a body, or the body in a certain condition. Okay, so now in the shlokas which we are looking at, the 17th shloka onwards, he has given this examples of the physical condition, how maintaining moderation is important. Now he comes to the main purpose of this chapter, meaning the where are we heading? What is the goal? What is the ultimate purpose of all these sadhanas or this dhyana also? What is, see, here in Bhagavad Gita, although sometimes we talk about karma yoga, we talk about bhakti yoga, dhyana yoga, they are ultimately all meant to lead us to the knowledge of truth, knowledge of reality, and abiding in that. So, dhyana becomes a means for abiding in that truth. Dhyana then is not just a dhyana for, I've already mentioned this, dhyana is not just for a little bit of, what do you call, like reducing the blood pressure or dealing with anxiety, or all that is also there, but that is what do you call, the side benefits for a person who is intent. Otherwise, what happens that consistency and that commitment will not come unless the vision is correct. So here the vision is, as we interpreted this name of this chapter. What is the name of this chapter? Anybody remembers?
Everyone would
Atma
know.
Samyama Yoga.
Yeah.
Atma Samyama Yoga. Very good. Atma Samyama or Atma Samyama Yoga. So here, so what is the um, translation? What is the translation that we came for this? We took for this? So in our book, we translated as one thing. Okay.
Jnana Yoga.
Dhyana Yoga, that is correct. But what is Atma Sanyama Yoga mean? So in our Gita Mananam book, we called it as what? Yoga of self-control and meditation. So that is one meaning. But there is one more meaning I had given at the introduction. Anybody remembers that?
Swamiji, I think you had linked it to the third of the 3 levels of sadhana with transcendence, self-abidance, nididhyasana, asparsha, jnana.
Yeah. So I had mentioned that this is a Madhusudana Saraswati's thing where he and or many other acharyas say. So this Atma Sanyama means contemplation on the self or meditation on the self or abiding in the self. So all these are um, um, or ways we can take that. Now, when we talked about, before we look at this further, so when we are talking about Atma Sanyama Yoga, uh, so here in all the, also in 15th shloka only he has started, Yunjanneva Sadatmanam Yogi Niyatamanasaha. So the one who is controlled, he abides in that, and then he says Shantim Nirvana Paramam Matstam sthanam adhigacchati. So he attains that peace. He attains that peace of Atma Tattva. That was already mentioned there. So meditating on the self, contemplation on the self, what we call as nididhyasana. So nididhyasana, at what stage is nididhyasana in our regular sadhana? When does nididhyasana come?
After manana.
After manana. Very good. So before manana is what?
Ramana.
Shravana.
Ravana
So,
Manan.
yeah, Shravana Manana. So sometimes we say like this, but it doesn't need to be exactly in that order. But Shravana is important. Before we start meditation in this context, Shravana is important. Otherwise, what happens? What do we meditate on? What are we meditating on? So this is also people who are new to meditation. They ask this question, right? What do we meditate on? So we kind of tell them, okay, meditate on your breath, meditate on some, visualize something or on a mantra. So all these are ways it is given. But the idea has to be clear, like why are we meditating and what are we really trying to meditate on? So this understanding is essential, quintessential for those who are committed to sadhana, because that meditation which we are doing at any level of meditation, different practices, according to our uh, ruchi, our taste. There is a, in Shiva Mahimna Stotram, there is a sloka. Rujukutila Nana Patajusham. meaning the according to person's taste. Many people have different taste. According to their different taste, they will seek Bhagavan accordingly. So each one comes through that path, but the goal is all leading to you. There it says, there it is saying Shiva, but the goal is to leading to that self, that Atma, that Paramatma. So all these practices, directly or indirectly, through our inclination, our personality. So based on that, different meditations are given. But all this meditation leads to this final goal. And a yogi who is mature, a yogi who has come to jnana, he realizes that that is where my goal is, ultimate goal is. So it is like, if you decide that you want to take you are going to some place and there is some road work going on. So the road is not good there. So you say, okay, I will take a longer route because this is more difficult to go from here. So sometimes in our sadhana, it's like that. We hit like a place where there is road work going on, and that road is very bad. So we decide, okay, I will take a little longer route and go. So, but we know where we are going. If we don't know where we are going, then we'll just follow the track. Wherever the track leads, we are going. There's no direction. So here, that clarification is coming in this in these slokas. And how to do this, and he's going to give some example also. So let us look at that shlokas. Okay, so this 17 we finished. Can chant from shloka number 16. So all of you try to repeat after me, join me chanting. Yada viniyatam chittam
Yada viniyatam chittam
atmanyevavatiष्ठते
atmanyevavadishtate
nispраha sarvakaमेभ्यो
nispruhat sarvakamebhyo
yukta ityuchyate tada
yukta yudyate
yatha deepo nivatasto
yatha deepo nivatasto
nengate sopama smrita
nengate sopamasa
yogino yata chittasya
yogino yatachittasya
yunjato yogamatmanaha
yunjato yogamatmanaha
yatro paramate chittam
yatro paramate chittam
niruddham yoga sevaya
niruddham yoga sevaya
yatra chaivatmanatmanam
yatra chaivatmanatmanam
pashyannatmani tushyati
pashyannatmani tusyati
sukhamatyantikam yattad
sukhamatyantikam yat
buddhigrayamatindriyam
buddhigrayamatindriyam
vetti yatra na chaivayam
Vedyatra
titaschalati tattvataha. Okay, so now he's explaining this thing. What happens once we do all this self-control, once we discipline and work with our diet, sleep, and all that, So he says, Yada viniyatam chittam atmanyeva avatishtati. So that mind of that person, that mind of that person is regulated through diet, through sleep, proper sleep, meaning balanced sleep, and through proper activities, a balanced set of activities, not being too lazy, not being too hyperactive. So then that such a person sits in meditation. That person, when he has regulated his mind, viniyatam chittam, that mind, atmani eva avateshtati. So he abides, his goal or his object is to abide in that self. He's attempting not just to focus on like something and always think of that. Those are initial steps. So you start with some japa, some breath, or even like these days other practices are there, like body scan practices, or watching the candle. And this is an ancient practice. So all those practices are ultimately what you are trying to abide in, that Atma Tattva. So for that, in order to abide in that, the one who has to come to that, Nispraha Sarva Kamebhyo, Yukta Ityuchate Tada. So once that person has done that, such person is called as Yukta. See, this word Yukta had come in many places. It says the mind has to be, in fact, here also, Yukta hara viharasya, Yukta chestasya. You see, all that had come there. Meaning the one who is uniting in yoga, one who is modulating yoga. When we say yoga also, that is that yuj dhatu, right? That's the same thing here, like the uniting or placing. So who is the one who is able to place the mind? Is it not? It is not just somebody who is fasting all the time or somebody who is always, working. So no, it is one who is able to abide in that thing, being free from other distractions. So the objects of distraction. So here in Nispraha Sarva Kamebhyo. So the Kamebhyo, there are two things. One is there is objects of desire, and then there is a desire. So for example, if I want to watch some movie, that movie is an object of my desire. And the desire for movie, wanting to watch that movie, because that movie, so many people may not go to that movie, right? Not everyone will go watch that movie, but that object of desire is there, and that desire in the mind is there. But the one who, see, for many people, when we come on the path, there will be desires coming every point. But those desires that are coming at different points, they may not all, one may not follow that desire. It may come and go. So for example, like if you go to some place and you have some local dish of that place, so there is a taste, you like it, and then after many years you go back. Then again the desire will arise for that. So you may or may not go have it, because that is where a person realizes, okay, this thing is not healthy, or this thing I don't need, or this thing I don't have to again indulge in. So there, what that person is nispraha. The desire is there, but he's not following that desire. So for many of us like that, we can watch, especially like, I also see when I was born at some place, that hometown area, we have so many foods, right? So again, when I go back there, now I can see these things I have desire for, these things I have desire for. But we can watch whether we need to follow it or not. So that is what he's saying, So in the meditation, when we are sitting, different thoughts will come. So the arising of the thoughts is not so much of a problem, but the engaging with the thought, following that thought, getting caught up with that thought, that is going to take you away from that self. And that is why he uses that word. Yukta ityuchate tada, the one who is able to abide in that without getting caught up in that distraction. Such a person can actually Atman eva avatishtati. He sit, literally sit, meaning he can literally abide in that self or rest in that self. So now he gives an example, a drishtanta, an illustration for that. And this is a very oft quoted illustration. Many, of course, all of Bhagavad Gita's illustrations are very popular, but this one is used for meditation. How should a meditating mind be like? And this example is Yatha Deepo Nivatasto Nengate Sopama Smritaha. A lamp in a windless spot, meaning in maybe like in your puja room where there is no wind, it is a closed room, and you put a lamp there. So there is no wind coming. So that lamp will be how? That lamp will not be flickering. It will not keep moving. Similarly, this is an upama. Upama means this is a simile or a metaphor for what? Yogino yatachittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha. A yogi who is abiding in that self, a yogi whose mind is placed on that Atma Tattva. That person, when the mind doesn't flicker, then such a person is considered fit for realization, or he's the one who is ready or he is capable of realizing that self or abiding in that self. So here again the example we have to understand. What is this example pointing? This example is talking about that state of dhyana, when that mind is able to, how the mind should be. When we are in meditation, the goal or the vision is what? What is a real state of meditation? A real state of meditation is when the mind has unflickering like a candle light or a lamp or the light of a lamp, which is not flickering. So that is what is the goal. And many people are trying to do this through different practices. So now when we talk about this, is there, you see that lamp, what happens to that lamp? The lamp is actually constantly burning. It's not like the lamp is not burning. That fire, that oil is going into that wick, and that um, uh, fire is feeding on it consistently. So it is not like where there is nothing happening. There is a lot happening. Every second there is something happening. Similarly, this person who is meditating, he's meditating constantly with that vritti. And this is the example given. This is the common definition of meditation in all our shastras. What is it? It is a sajati with vritti pravaha. A stream of similar or continuous, harmonized thoughts. And it is the vijati vritti abhava or vijati vritti tyaga, meaning rejecting the opposite thoughts, any distracting thoughts. So this is a fundamental definition of meditation. So we are focusing consistently on one thought or a stream of thoughts or a similar kind of thoughts and rejecting anything which is not in line with that, in consistence with that. And so that is also the same thing for nididhyasana. So, however, there is a little difference between a meditating on an object and meditating on the self. So this is the fundamental thing or basis on which we can understand other shlokas, because from the next shloka onwards, that state that is mentioned is we have to understand that state. So in fact, Anand Giriji, who is a sub-commentator, he mentions it is the state equivalent in Patanjali Yoga Sutra to Asamprājñāta Samadhi. So there are two kinds of samadhi mentioned when we talk about chitta vritti nirodha, Samprājñāta Samadhi and Asamprājñāta Samadhi. At a very fundamental level, Samprājñāta Samadhi means with an object. Asamprājñāta Samadhi means no object, lack of or devoid of object, or something I focus on. So now, although that in Yoga Sutra it is mentioned, chitta vritti nirodha, I mean cessation of all thoughts. So there it is again, we have to understand what is this difference in Atma Anusandhana we say, or we say like meditating on the self, or here we are using Atma Sanyama. What is the difference in the meditation on an object versus meditation on self? Maybe somebody can mention, if somebody has an idea, I want to know. Does anybody know what could be the difference between meditating on an object versus meditating on the self?
The self is no object. It's
Ha,
like a non-dual, maybe.
good, very good, yeah. Anybody else?
Can we say,
Nobody?
Swamiji, that meditation on an object is more of a chitta shuddhi idea, and meditation on the self is more to get towards realization or this state of nirvana, as mentioned from you?
But what if the meditating on the self is also used as an object, right? To start with, we take it as an object only because we have not realized that self. So we are using like a concept based on the teachings or something. So when even the meditation happens, what is the difference in the vrittis, the thoughts? When you meditate on an object versus meditating on the self.
You achieve nirodha, this complete state of nirodha.
So no thoughts.
No thoughts.
But see, when we say samprajñāta, there is still thought. That object is there.
But meditation on the self is like Asamprājñāta Samadhi, no? Without object.
But without object, there is still thought, right? When you meditate, is there a thought or no thought? You're saying there's no thought when you meditate.
You meditate on an idea of the self. Can I say it? I don't know.
Yeah, so that is close. When we are saying meditating on an idea, so there is a vritti, there is a thought. So Asamprājñāta Samadhi is that culmination, correct? But yet, what is happening? So this is why I'm saying is this example here is very good to understand this. I mentioned that the candle is burning, but it looks like the light is stable. That light of the candle is stable, but the burning of the candle is happening every second, right? So that stability of that light that is coming is because of that burning of that candle. So there is a similarity in meditation on that self. There is something that is happening, otherwise it is not a meditation. If you are saying that there is no thought at all as such, it is true, Asamprājñāta Samadhi, or that complete cessation, as somebody mentioned, Sabija or Nirbija Samadhi, there's completely freedom from any kind of thought. But the meditation which leads to that, or the meditation culminating in that, there is a difference in that also, when it is meditation on self versus meditation on an object.
Swamiji,
Ramana.
I
Yes.
could also say when I'm meditating on an object, I am meditating on it is outward, and the meditation is on the seen. When in contrast, when I'm meditating on the self, I'm withdrawing myself inward, and the emphasis is on being with the seer.
That is the closest, what we are looking at. Anyone wants to give a last try?
Duality versus non-duality. So, pen still will have some duality because it can never become the observer, right? The person who's meditating.
So this duality and what we are saying is also that, what he's saying. See, the dualistic meditation is what? When we are using an object, there are two processes inward, and mentally also. See, there is first is the object thought, we call idam vritti. There is some thought that I'm having that this object is there. Then there is a recognition of this thing. We sometimes call vritti vyapti phala vyapti. So there is a object thought, and then there is a I, as he said, the seer has to recognize this. See, that is what is causing this dualistic thing in meditation. I am the meditator, and this is what I'm meditating on. So here what it is, this meditator and the thing meditated on, it's different from each other. So at this point, what is happening is the first is called a vritti vyapti. I see this object, and then there is a thought of this object. Then there is a phala vyapti, meaning the recognition, the fruition. I recognize this, or I am recognizing this. So this has to come, like I, who am separate, I'm seeing this object. So this is two things that is happening here. Now, in the meditation on self, as somebody said, non-dualistic, or the meditating on the seer, what is happening is I meditate on that object. So vritti vyapti, the first thing is happening. The fruition of that is what, or the recognition of that is what? Is it another thought? No, when I meditate on that object as the self, there is no one more thought required. So there is only that one thought, meaning the thought is there. This is what we call akhandakara vritti, brahmakara vritti. Many words are used. Meaning that thought is consistently there. But what is that thought on? It doesn't fall on something that is seen. So there is no subject object, or further, if you want to put it, the triad, meditation, meditator, and the process of meditation. All this culminates here. Why? Because you as the seer are meditating on the seer itself, so there is no second recognition required. And the realization of Bhagavan or Brahman also has non-different from ourselves is the same thing. So we start off meditating on Bhagavan as somebody different, but soon we realize that Bhagavan is my antaryami, is my own self. So there what happens, there also that earlier object will drop, and you will rest in that subject. So either processes, either you directly inquire into who am I, or you use Bhagavan as your own self. So there, both ways, you are abiding in that self. So that subject-object duality will fall. Okay. I hope
Swami, can I
Yeah.
check something if I
Yes.
understood it right? For example, when I meditate on the self, it's like I'm observing the observer. I'm connected with the observation. Is that what you are saying, or?
The first what you said is correct. You're not so much focused on the process of observation, but on the observer itself. So you are meditating on that observer. Initially, it is a subject-object meditation. It is like a Samprājñāta Samadhi initially, meaning you are using that self also as an object, because you don't have a kind of a experiential awareness of it. So you are using what the Gita, other Shastras are saying, and you are saying, okay, I am the pure self, I am the seer, so let me meditate on the seer. So, but as you go deeper into this meditation, that seer is what you are meditating on. As you said, the observer is what you are meditating on. So at this point, that what was observed becomes that observer. Meaning you are observing that as a self. When that realization starts dawning, that what was observed becomes that observer itself. And then there is no more observer observed anymore. So there are no two thoughts. That is the most important thing. In every object, there is two thoughts. I see this pen and then I say, I am the seer of the pen. Otherwise, this pen is there, it's just there. But I am the seer of the pen develops this relationship, dualistic relationship. I and this pen. So meditation, the real process, most people don't want to really understand this process because they are happy with dualistic meditation. But for those of us who want to understand this aspect of meditation on that self or the supreme self, we have to understand this process. I am starting with the process of meditating on that self, initially with an idea, but slowly with that thing, that realization is a consistent thoughts that are coming, that self, that what we call aham spuranam. I thought is coming. Okay, we will look at a couple of more shlokas and then a few more things will become clear. So he mentions in the next shloka, yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya. So when through the discipline of yoga or through the practice of yoga, the mind becomes quiet or still. So this is the same like which, we say chitta vritti nirodha. So in that, but now we were not sure what exactly it was, right? So here he says same thing, chitta vritti nirodha. So the word he says yatra uparame means the withdrawal. Chittam niruddham, that same thing, chitta vritti nirodha we say, niruddham. The mind is restrained or mind is quietened. Then what happens? Yoga sevaya, by the practice of yoga. Yatra cha eva. Now he gives this point, this explanation I gave. He says, Atmana atmanam pashyan atmani tushyati. So by that self, the self, seeing that self is satisfied. So this is what I'm saying, that subject, that process and that object, meditator, process of meditation and the object of meditation. When all of this are one or become one, that is the culmination, he says. So if you look at it, just for those who have a little interest or in the Sanskrit way it is. So first he says Atmana, that is the second case, Dvitiya Vibhakti, object. Sorry, that is a Karmani, the third case. And Atmanam, second case there, the object. Pashyan Atmani, in that self, which is the seventh case. So who is doing all that? The subject, which is the first case. So the first object, the subject, meditates on that self through that self. Meaning that self meditates on that object through that self. That first, second, third cases of Sanskrit. So it is how it is taught. So here we can take it as the Trinity, the meditator, the object of meditation, and that process or the instrument through which you are meditating. When all of this become the same, then this is what that say, right? Meditation on that self or non-dual meditation, or we say where the there is only vritti vyapti, no phala vyapti, meaning there is a thought, the thought of an object is there, the thought of pen is there, but there is no second thought which says, I recognize this pen, I know this pen. Why? Because the first thought which says, oh, this is the self, is itself saying that I, the self, is this self. So there is no second thought required. There is no phala. So that this is where he says, this is the true satisfaction one gets, meaning the one attains that contentment here. The true contentment comes there. All other things, even the highest samadhi, that still doesn't completely fulfill you. You still have to come out of it. You still have to, meaning be incomplete. You have to seek other things. So, so this process here he's meaning. He completes this by saying, Sukha matyantikam yadvat, buddhi grayam atindriyam. See this thing, ultimate happiness, the sukham atyantikam. This is the culmination of all happiness. This is that happiness which we are truly seeking in all other happinesses. And finding this happiness, we don't want any other happinesses. He's going to say in the next shloka, Yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha. Once attaining this happiness, you don't want other happiness, or you're not seeking other petty happiness. No? So we all know that, like there is a happiness of object, Vishaya Sukha, objects, people, movies, things to do. These are all the object happiness. Everybody is seeking that. And then there is the little bit of a Sukshma Ananda, got through meditation, studies, even studies also, and or japa, or going to some beautiful places, or going to some having some, healthy food. So all these are also a little bit like a Sukshmananda, meaning it is not gross happiness. This is more subtler happiness. This is sadhakas are initially seeking that sattvic happiness. But that also is not going to satisfy us. And this happiness, where the self abides in that self, where the self finds through that self the culmination in that self, that happiness is the supreme happiness. This is atyantikam. Buddhi graya, the intellect will grasp that, because happiness at that point is still experienced by the mind intellect only. So what we were originally finding happiness in the world, we find it internally in that Atma Tattva. And then we are truly content. We are not, so all our insecurities, all our sense of incompletion, everything will fall away. And then he goes on to say, what is the nature of this sukha? He says the nature of this sukha is that it is atindriyam. It is not of the senses. He wants to clarify, maybe it is through some kind of some special technique, or now sometimes nowadays people say, right, like through some kind of special drugs they go into some state and all that. So of course, that state, the experience is that sukham, but that sukha is also temporary. But here atindriya, not derived through any senses. It is not even initiated through senses, not triggered through senses, not something that is a culmination of senses, even at a subtle level. So even that subtle happinesses we experience, there is a little bit of senses involved there. Like if you are, if you enjoy a beautiful song, so that song as such, you're not grasping at that song, but it gives a certain, like even a devotional song, it can be. It leaves a certain kind of a purification for the mind and senses. There's an effect on that. So here it is not even that. But it is the most gratifying. It is the most fulfilling happiness. Vetti yatra na chaivayam sthithas chalati tattvataha. So once established on that, that person will not deviate, meaning he will not come back to worldly happinesses, or he will not get lost in these things. Veti tattvataha. So this happiness is what all of us are seeking in wrong objects, in wrong pursuits. So until we don't realize it, we will keep going in that. So when the mind is able to come back and abide in that, so an example can be something like how a river, a river, until it is a river, it is flowing. But once the river merges into that sea, that ocean, it becomes vast. It finds that natural fulfillment. Or it's like sometimes you can see in the sky, right? A cloud slowly is dispersing into that sky. So similarly, when we are starting with that kind of a localized or a attention, our subjective attention we are starting out with. In our meditation, even meditating on self, it starts like that. It starts like a subjective attention. We are placing our little attention on that object of meditation, which in this case is this ocean-like consciousness. So, but yet as we go through, as we get an experience of this awareness or this consciousness, then that anchor of that mind will detach. So this is that unbinding of that mind has and focusing on that object into that nature of that consciousness itself. So that is that complete freedom, that complete happiness. So this is the purpose of the ultimate purpose of that meditation. And of course, there are different explanation, different yogic samadhis and all that also that are experienced. So we can talk about it in that self, or sometimes a nirvikalpa samadhi, it is commonly talked about. So these are helpful, direct insights, these kind of states or experiences. It's hard to exactly kind of say, okay, how is this different from object and subject until we start having a little insight, experience ourselves. Okay, any question, comments on these things? Yeah, Ramanujacharya mentions one point where that drishtanta, that focusing on the candle, he mentions that when one meditates, then that lamp is a symbolic of that lamp of knowledge, meaning that true knowledge which we have of the Atma Tattva or of the Paramatma, that knowledge is constantly what is there. It is lighting us. So that doesn't mean that we are distracted. There is no distraction. The distractions may be there, but that knowledge is so strong, or the realization, or that what we call the experiential presence of that is so strong that even if distraction comes, it will not shut off that lamp. So we are using this example of a lamp in a windless pot, but it doesn't mean that we have to think of it that we have to meditate only where there is no distraction. Here, the idea is that even though there are distractions, even though there are things, when that knowledge or that presence is strong, then the meditation is somewhat automatic, where you will not get lost by that distraction. You become like that, the mind becomes like that light of the candle or the lamp, which even though there may be wind, meaning distraction in our context, it will remain stable, steady. Okay. Okay. Okay, there's no comments, questions. Then I'll just, there is a beautiful, I thought, the closest to this is a very good quote from Ramana Maharshi. He mentions that when he had a spiritual awakening experience, right? So he talks about it where he says that when he was inquiring into that self, so I will read this part where he says where he first had a glimpse of that self. From that moment onwards, the I or self focused attention on itself by a powerful fascination. See, this is what the mind drops, the Atma, which was the mind in the first place, drops in that self, meaning the mind gets sucked into that self. And then he goes on to say absorption in the self continued unbroken from that time on. Other thoughts might come and go like the various notes of music, but the I continued like the fundamental Shruti note, meaning the main note, the main music note that underlies and blends with all other notes. Whether the body was engaged in talking, reading, or anything else, I was still centered on that I. Previous to that, I had no clear perception of myself and was not consciously attracted to it. So this is what we are saying, right? Like initially we took it as an object, but at that point, that mind gets sucked in, drawn into that self. And that is what the lamp example, then becomes steady and you are drawn and you are stable in that. Okay.
And that's what we call nididhyasana.
Nididhyasana, yes. So this process is what is called nididhyasana. You are meditating on that self using thoughts. So this is where I was trying to mention. The thoughts are there. It is not like there is no thoughts. So, but the thoughts are in that same thing, on that one self. That thoughts are. So it is almost like it is no thoughts from a objective perspective. So when we say no thoughts, chitta vritti, we are saying there is no object thought. But we are not saying there is no self-thought, meaning there is no, that vritti of self is not there. It is going on all the time. So that is what Asamprājñāta also is as such. There is no object thought, but there is a subject thought, or that's centered on that self. All right. So we will leave it at this then. So we'll take next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Actually, this mantra we chant, is also like that. That this Purna, which is that self, focused on the other Purna. Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. So this when this completeness focuses on that completeness, and when this completeness is taken away from that completeness, what remains is that completeness. So that is the same kind of idea when we are focused. Okay, namaste, Om Namo Narayana.
Thank you.